All right, today we're going to talk a lot about South Africa and why it's gone so bad and how it's a cautionary tale for the rest of the world. But before we get into that, let's meet one of the main politicians in South Africa, Julius Malema. And he's going to make a promise about what he will do if he takes over the country.
There's no crime I've committed. I've never slapped a white person. Nothing. I've never called for their slaughter. I've never called for their killing, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that. They free.
All right, so there you have him saying that he has not called for the killing of white people in South Africa, at least for now. Now, I actually respect that from a politician. You know, a lot of politicians make campaign promises that they clearly can't keep. He is non-committal about the mass murder of a significant part of his population. But at least, you know, he doesn't want to make promises he can't keep. But is it really true that he didn't call for the killing of white people? Let's have a listen.
Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. Attention.
So that song is about killing the poor. He means white farmers. So yeah, I guess he's just a liar like every other politician. All right, let's get into the show. All right, South Africa has recently been in the news, and not for anything good. They've had the most shameful stance on the war in Gaza, which is not new for them. They have recently had their ambassador kicked out of the United States. The economy is not going great. And they just passed a law, which is very important to them, according to the ANC, a law that allows expropriation of land without compensation. So this is very similar to eminent domain, where the government could just seize land from you. Now, I think this is an awful practice. But here they're saying without compensation. Don't you worry. They say specifically in the laws, only in circumstances where it is just and equitable and in the public interest to do so. So that's it. Government has passed a law and they're just gonna do it only when it's right. And we know how that goes, right? Because I'm not interested in how a saint reads a law. I'm interested how someone like the Attorney General in New York, Letitia James, reads the law. And according to that, which is clearly how it's going to be done, they're going to be exporting a lot of land. And a country that doesn't value property rights is toast. South Africa's been heading down for a long time, but this is the end. If you don't respect property rights, you will not be able to survive as a country. And I hope they change this. But this is a disaster. And I want to get into how South Africa went this way, because I think it's a cautionary tale for a lot of other states who are not there yet, that are heading that way. All right. So let's have a brief history of what happened in South Africa. So, in 1994, Nelson Mandela came to power. He came to power after a revolution that saw correctly the black majority put an end to minority right rule and a system called apartheid, a shameful, racist, awful system that destroyed the lives and dignity of millions of South Africans. And the way the revolution happened
was shockingly peaceful.
The ANC, led by Nelson Mandela, came to power, did not massacre anyone. And if you know the rest of African history, that's quite incredible. They did not go and destroy the country. They did not go and destroy white neighborhoods. And it was really quite remarkable. And they created a constitution which guaranteed the rights of all people and religion. And it really looked like there was a chance that South Africa could become a multiracial, very successful country. And South Africa should be rich. South Africa is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It has amazing natural resources.
The beauty of South Africa is extraordinary. A country like that should be exploding with tourists. There is, and sure, there are parts of South Africa that are very well visited, but There's huge swaths that are undeveloped, that are not being taken advantage of, all because the government just cannot keep up with infrastructure and create safety.
Most delicious fruits. They're imported all over the world. South Africa has amazing talent. South Africa has a people that are excited to work, that want to do work. South Africa is an amazing country and a really and incredible place. But it has been ravaged by crime and total mismanagement. They have suffered from water shortages in cities that clearly the government didn't prioritize. They've had major electric shortages. There's been a country often experiences rolling blackouts. This is something they knew about years before that they didn't fix. Unemployment is at 33. So what happened? How did it go off the rails? How did it go so bad? So definitely we can't ignore the fact that the economy was built on the backs of oppression of blacks. And once you tried to create an economy that worked for everyone, there are definitely going to be some hiccups in terms of expanding education and access. But what South Africa has suffered from is just extreme mismanagement. The government has been excited about social issues and grandstanding. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch them always, look what we've achieved. We created a constitution. We created this. We created that. I'm like, it rang wrong to me, even as a kid. Fine, you liberated the country. That's fantastic. They should all be awarded the Nobel Prize. And Mandela did get the Nobel Prize. But after that, governance becomes the most important thing. And governance requires guarding the borders, upholding property rights, making sure that electricity flows, making sure the water flows. Those are the basics of what government does. And in all those areas, the government has been falling apart.
Now, some people want to blame this on Thabo Mbeki, who was the president after Mandela, who believed, quite shockingly, that HIV does not cause AIDS and that affirmative action is not racist and harmful to the economy. And some people want to blame the dumpster fire that was Jacob Zuma. Now, Jacob Zuma, as I'm about to show you, is a believer in the Bible. So we cannot blame the whole country's woes on him. And to prove that, let me just show you an important speech that he gave. Now I ask you, could such an eloquent speaker be the cause of South Africa's woes? And so the next president, Cyril Ramaphosa, the president that everybody liked, the darling of the West, also was no good, because that isn't the reason why South Africa is falling apart.
Why? It's very, very simple. One-party rule destroys countries. One-party rule is a disaster, because government in the best of forms is extremely incompetent. But when you have a country where you have similar to what happened to Israel and its founding, obviously somewhat less incompetent, but you have one party that sweeps into power with popularity of being the revolutionaries. They come into power with 2/3 majority. They have no one pushing back against them, and it just leads to corruption. And it's not anything special to South Africa. This is what will happen if you have one party rule. And this is a cautionary tale for a lot of Democrat-run states. You see states, super blue states like California, are suffering from many of similar problems. Water shortages during fires, like we spoke about. The government just can't seem to keep up. The government tries to put money into specific things, in winners and losers in South Africa. And it's just all state corruption, and what's worst of all is they don't even end up delivering the service. This could also happen in states like California. Now, why am I always picking on California? Why don't I pick on the red states? You have a funny thing in America. Cities are often blue, even in red states. So what you often have is in red states is strong Republican governance at the state level, but at the city level, it's the Democrats. And that tension creates, I think it's good. I think if there'd be a purely red state, I think it'd be very bad. So, like I said, I don't think the South African government is uniquely incompetent. I think all governments are incompetent. And until the last election, they actually lost their majority. But I think it was too late. And so what ends up happening is these governments who are completely incompetent, look for excuses. So they say, you know why we're failing? It's because the white people own too much land. Now, this happened in Zimbabwe. When the economy was failing there, they allowed people to just seize farms. It did not go well. The economy tanked, because you can't have farms just being taken over by people. Now, on this point, I just want to address something. It's really, really awful that things like apartheid happened, or things like Jim Crow happened. They are a stain on human history. But to try and overcorrect with different kind of racism is also racism. And racism is evil. Sometimes a government has to turn around and say, there is nothing we can do here that won't be evil. So it sucks that these injustices were done. It's an awful thing. But if we try to correct for it, we will destroy the country, because the state does not have the power to start. The state does not have the wherewithal and the wisdom. Now, obviously, I'm not claiming we can't get rid of any injustices that were done. Of course, I believe that if there is a South African whose home, there's possibly someone today in South Africa whose home was seized by them by the apartheid government and is still alive, or their children are still alive. I have no problem with that land going back to the rightful owner. In fact, I demand it. But the idea that you're going to vaguely get rid of injustices by programs like affirmative action, which thank God have been ruled on by the Supreme Court to be illegal and racist. When you try things like that, you end up creating resentment, you create a victim mentality, you create a belief that one can't succeed because the system is stacked against them, which is fundamentally untrue, and you end up being racist. Programs like DEI are racist in this country, anywhere in the world. The idea that you would make decisions based on the color of someone's skin or their gender is discriminatory, and it shouldn't be allowed. It's also a classic move by governments. They fail their people, and then they just look for someone to blame. The only people to blame is bad governance. It's not the lack of diversity programs that is South Africa's had affirmative action for 30 years, and they still have 33% unemployment. Because that's not the way to, because there is no substitute for good governance. There's no substitute for allowing the free market to be free. There's no substitute for giving businesses the confidence they need to be able to set up shop. Now, another thing that failing governments often do is they start to get distracted with social issues and international issues. The South African government is really obsessed with the Israeli government. But that's not the whole story. And this is an important point and a segue into our next story. During the apartheid, the ANC had very few material supporters. They had a lot of support around the world, but they didn't have people providing them with weapons. And also during the apartheid, most governments put an arms embargo on South Africa. On South Africa, the state of Israel defied that arms embargo and supported and shipped arms to the apartheid government in South Africa. Now, I am not going to back and relitigate what the justification for that. It was a terrible thing that happened. And the Palestinians under the PLO fervently supported the ANC and trained them and provided them with material support. I don't mean to excuse the shameful conduct of the ANC government. But what I will say is that bad decisions have consequences, and bad foreign policy decisions have major consequences. And the fact that Israel supported the apartheid government came back to bite them in a big way. We should learn from that. We should be very careful when supporting foreign conflicts, but we're not. And that leads us to the Houthis. Now, let me just say that I can't think of a military intervention that the United States has got involved in that I support over the last few decades. This is the exception. The Houthis have been attacking ships and commerce in the Red Sea, and this is totally unacceptable. It costs the whole world a lot. It costs the whole world a fortune, billions of dollars of lost trade. It means everybody has to go around Africa, and it's made the whole world less safe. And America, as the protector of their own vessels, has the absolute right to grind them to dust. They have no right to attack shipping. This is not a foreign intervention. These are our ships in international waters. This is what the military is for. The military is not for running around in interventions all around the world. The military is to protect the business and economy of your country. And so I support Trump's intervention in Houthi against the Houthis in Yemen. And I saw the conduct of the Biden administration to be completely shameful and the dereliction of duty. That being said, who are these Houthis? So the Houthis have been involved in a civil war for many years since the fall of the last government. Very complicated story. The president was out, and then he came back, and then he came out and back, and he found that he wasn't the president anymore. So the Saudis backed one side, and Iran backed the other side. And we backed the Saudis, leading to an international catastrophe and leading to a humanitarian crisis that led to the deaths of tens of thousands of children due to cholera. The war was terrible. The Saudi siege was terrible. It's terrible. And the fact that we supported it undoubtedly created bad will among the Houthis. Now, again, if they attack us, we should pound them to the ground. But we should be very careful about what wars we get involved in, because our support of the Saudis clearly was led to this. As clearly was a factor in leading to this. Now, on Ben Shapiro's podcast the other day, he spoke about attacking Iran and talked about the Houthis, and he said like this: no literal person is calling for the use of boots on the ground, and we don't want boots on the ground. Nobody wants boots on the ground. And it's completely disingenuous to say that people are calling for boots on the ground. Mr. Shapiro, I think your comments are disingenuous. They're mistaken. Nobody is claiming that America wants right now has a strategy to put boots on the ground. But that's not how boots get to the ground. Look at Vietnam. How did we end up there? Well, it's very simple. We had ships supporting the South Vietnamese army. Those ships got attacked. Turned out that was fake group. Then we needed support of those. So then we needed support troops on the ground. Then we needed more support troops on the ground. Then those troops got attacked. So we had to defend them. And then that's how you get into a war. That's how it escalates. That's how all war escalates. So of course, no one's calling for boots on the ground. But if you go set up shop and you go start bombing Iran, and then they bomb a ship, so then you'll have boots on the ground pretty quickly. So the idea that no one's calling for boots on the ground, every time you get involved in military operations, you run the risk of ending up with boots on the ground. You end the risk of seeing service members dying, and the anger and the quest for retribution that brings up. It is terrible planning to pretend that whenever you intervene, there won't be boots on the ground. And I really hope it's not necessary here, and I really discourage it, because all Trump needs is to get stuck in some stupid Middle East war, to destroy his tenure, and they should not do that. So, in other news, one of the worst governors in New York, a shameful, arrogant tyrant named Andrew Cuomo, is dipping his toes into the mayor's race, and he's currently leading in the polls. Now, I remember when Cuomo was ousted due to Me Too. He was accused of inappropriately touching a lot of women, and that is shameful and disgusting. But that is not why he should have been thrown out of office. He should have been thrown out of office because his COVID policies led to the deaths of thousands of people in nursing homes. He did it. He set up 2 huge hospitals in New York. Instead of sending sick COVID patients to those hospitals, forced nursing homes to take them back. Thousands and thousands of people. There are thousands of New Yorkers today without their grandmothers because of Cuomo. His COVID policy were insane and tyrannical. They destroyed the city. They destroyed the economy. They destroyed everything. They didn't work. They treaded on basic human rights. I remember at the beginning of COVID, they said they're suspending the right to speedy trial. Well, because the Constitution just doesn't matter when there's COVID going around. And this is what Cuomo did. So the idea that such a person should ever be allowed in public office again is crazy. We cannot allow this monstrous tyrant anywhere near public office. He should be in prison. He certainly should not be the next mayor of New York. And as bad as the mayors of New York are, he would be a new low. And so we're going to spend some time on the podcast in the coming weeks, doing as much as possible to trash the Cuomos, because if I can lend my voice, even in the smallest way, and it's a very small voice, in the smallest way, to stopping this awful, arrogant murderer, that would have been a great contribution. And so, and as somebody who used to live in New York, I feel strongly that it can be a great city, that it can't be a great city with someone like Cuomo. All right. So in other news, I'm thinking of dipping my toes into politics. Why? I live in Rockland County. It's a very interesting demographic from a schooling point of view. I'm an Orthodox Jew. There are a lot of Orthodox Jews in Rockland County, and we Orthodox Jews sent to private school. Now, the problem is private schools are not funded by the state, but there are parts of private schooling that are funded. So let's say busing is part of that. Busing is part of that, and certain special needs programs. The problem is that the way the state works out the formula is based on the amount of public school parents in the district, which is a disaster because that formula is a disaster because the allocation of state money then, if they're not counting the majority of parents and they're allocating, so there's not going to be enough funds. And so this has led to like terrible heartache among public school parents and private school parents. But what has the state done? They've imposed their will with a commissioner called Betty A. Rosa, another tyrant, somebody who was not elected by the people of Rockland County, to come and tell us how to run a business. Instead of changing the formula, which would be the most easy and logical thing to do, they've decided to impose their will on us. So last year, the people of Rockland County voted not to raise property taxes, which is a predominant funder of the schools. That's what we voted for. And we have a school board. This Betty A. Rosa, this tyrant, threatened the school board that if they did not pass a raising taxes at the defying the will of the voters, they would all be thrown out of office. If they did not raise now like a bunch of cowards, total in a completely cowardly fashion, the board acquiesced and voted to raise taxes.
And recently it came out that there is a major surplus. So the whole justification for raising the taxes was nonsense. The money just appeared. Now a lot of people are angry because like, why did you force us to raise our taxes if you didn't even need the money? And that's not what I'm angry about at all. I see the whole school board up and how could you have done this to us? That is nonsense. The reason why the school board are a bunch of cowards is because they failed as elected representatives, and it has nothing to do with money that it subsequently found. Of course, it's indicative of corruption, and that should be investigated, but certainly not by these cowards who can't fulfill their basic duty.
That was their moment to shine. That was their moment to say, we won't do it, and if you want to kick us out, that's fine, and then we'll sue you, and we'll take this unconstitutional process to court because the voters decide, not you. That would have been their moment. They would have shined. They would have been amazing. They would have been treasured. But instead, they showed themselves to be a bunch of cowards. And so I call on all the members of the Rockland County School Board to resign in disgrace. But because they're not going to, I am considering running for the school board. Now, I plan on running only to get fired. I plan on running and defying Betty A. Rosa, the tyrant, the witch, that would be my mission. To oppose everything she does, to shame and trash her, and to show what a tyrant she is, and to show that democracy still exists in Rockland County. And I will never acquiesce any of her demands because my goal will be to get fired, to bring a lawsuit from that. So I'm posing the question to the audience: should I run? And if so, will you support my candidacy for school board? All right, everyone, that'll do it for today. Let me know. I'm going to leave a poll and let me know what you think. And again,